up, gamers? I'm Jason.
I'm Julie.
And today on Dice & Dragons, we are going to be doing a full campaign review of the first expansion, campaign expansion for Marvel Champions, the card game. This is the Rise of Red Skull. It is once again designed by Michael Boggs and Caleb Grace, who've done work on previous expansions as well as the original game. And it is published, of course, by Fantasy Flight Games. Now, with that being said, Julie's going to tell you more about this expansion.
It is, of course, a cooperative game like the original. It is intended for 2 to 4 players and it ages 14 and above. And it plays in about 60 minutes for 2 players, longer for more players.
Definitely. Now, in this expansion, you're going to be getting Hawkeye and Spider-Woman as your 2 new heroes. And the exciting thing about this is there are 5 new villains that are being added to the game. We have Crossbones, the Absorbing Man, Taskmaster, Arnim Zola, and of course, the Red Skull himself. Now, what you're going to be doing in this game, if you are playing a campaign, you're going to go through these scenarios in sequence. At the end of every scenario, you're going to follow the instructions as you may be able to get some upgrades for your characters that will carry through the game. As like the base game, you can also play in normal mode as well as expert mode. So we've gone ahead and played all of the campaign. I was going to say all of the game, and I was like, that didn't really sound right. So we will not be taking it back to the table. We're going to be going straight to the components and then to the review. So what time is it now, Julie?
It's time to grab our drinks.
Grab our fellow hero.
Or Avenger.
Yeah, Avenger works.
You gotta take it to the components.
That doesn't really work, but we're going to, let's just stick with what we normally do. We're going to take it to the table one more time because in theory we could just play, a one-off scenario. It does work that way.
Okay.
Now we're going to take a look at the components for Marvel Champions, the card game, The Rise of the Red Skull. We'll start with the rule book, and if you did happen to watch the unboxing that we did of this, take a look down below in the video description. You'll be able to find just a link to skip ahead as we're going to be rehashing a little bit what we did there. So with the rule book, we get the explanation of the different villain decks, the heroes, total number of cards, explains what the new symbol is, and the new mode of play, which is the campaign mode, which is awesome. And we have a campaign log on the back, which I'm definitely going to be using. Julie and I will be using as we play through this campaign. Now, you do have different scenarios that has some art. Well, not art, I'd say some comic panels to set it up. You've got instructions on how to set up the game, as well as the campaign mode setup instructions. Then there's scenario 2 with the Absorbing Man. We also get some more story stuff. Scenario 3 with Taskmaster. Scenario 4 with Zola. Scenario 5, the Red Skull. And then the rules for the expert campaign and how you set up Hawkeye and Spider-Woman, who is your first dual aspect hero, and that is actually her ability. So that's the quick look at the rule book. Now you can play the scenarios as one-offs. So here we've got Spider-Woman. So her ability is superhuman agility. The interrupt is when you play an aspect card, meaning, aggression or justice. Well, you get +1 thwart, +1 attack, and +1 defense. You get ally of Captain Marvel. Exhaust finesse, which will let her generate a wild resource. In her apartment, you can search the top 5 cards of your deck for any specific aspect card. Venom Blast, which deals 5 damage to an enemy. This card is both a Spider-Woman card and an aggression card, so that's pretty neat. Pheromones, so stun and confuse an enemy. Heal 3 damage from Spider-Woman and give her a tough status card. Contaminant immunity, inconspicuous, is remove total 3 threat from the schemes, but it's also Spider-Woman and a justice card. So she can get self-propelled glide to become aerial. Get another ally as Spider-Girls, and when you play her from the hand, you can stun and confuse an enemy. Then combat training, tac team. Press the advantage, lets you deal 2 damage to an enemy. If the enemy is stunned or confused, you get to draw a card. Piercing strike, which deals 3 damage and lets you gain piercing. You got Spider-Man, and after you play him, after you play Spider-Man from hand, you remove 3 threat from a side scheme only. So this increases your threat reduction with heroic intuition. Skilled Investigator, if you defeat a side scheme, you get to draw a card. Then the interrogation room. Clear the area lets you remove some threat, but also draw a card. If this lets you remove the final threat from a scheme, then just these three basic cards with the double energy, because that's all she has in her deck. Now we've got her uncertain loyalties, so her obligation, and her nemesis, Viper. Now I just stacked this with Clint Barton's just to make a nice area here. A little up too close there to the light would get some glare. I wanted to avoid that. So we got Hawkeye, exhaust Hawkeye to ready his bow. Now Hawkeye's bow, your hero gets +1 attack, and each of your arrow attacks gain range and ignores retaliate. So that's pretty cool. So it lets you do a few different things. So you may play arrow events attached to this card as if they were in your hand. So hero action exhaust Hawkeye's quiver, shows the top 5 cards of your deck for an arrow and attach it to this face up. So it looks like you can get almost an extra attack using the bow. You get Mockingbird. When the villain initiates an attack against you, spend 1 resource of any type and return Mockingbird to your hand. Prevent all damage from the attack. That's awesome. Sonic Arrow, so it's an attack you exhaust Hawkeye's bow, confuse an enemy, and deal 3 damage. Very cool. Explosive Arrow, exhaust the bow, deal 3 damage to the villain and each minion engaged with that player. Electric Arrow, exhaust Hawkeye's bow, stun an enemy, deal 3 damage or 5 if it's already stunned. Cable Arrow lets you remove 3 threat from a scheme, ignoring any crisis icons. Vibranium Arrow deals 6 damage to an enemy and it gains piercing. Expert Marksman lets you generate a wild resource. Now you can play the other Hawkeye, Kate Bishop. Exhaust this ally and discard 1 card from your hand to deal X damage to an enemy, where X is the number of printed resources on that card. So that can be useful. The Black Knight, his basic attack gains piercing. Discard any tough status cards from the target before dealing damage. That's awesome. Goliath, he gets +4 attack until the end of phase. At the end of the phase, discard Goliath. So you can use him like 1 time. So that's pretty cool. Well, if you use his +4 attack. U.S. Agent. It's got Retaliate. So this makes sense for a leadership this deck. So this gives you an extra... Sorry, this makes your allies or yourself aerial. Team Training lets each ally get more hit points. Give an ally you control a tough status card with ready for action. Lead from the front we've seen before as of Power of Leadership. War Machine. So his basic attack gains range and he ignores Retaliate. So he enters play with a tough status card, Avenger's Tower. If each of your allies has the Avenger trait, increase the limit by 1. So you can exhaust the tower to play Avengers more easily. Exhaust an Avenger character to play another one. Then just your regular double energy. Now Clint's obligation, of course, is his criminal past. And Crossfire is his nemesis. And that would be the side scheme that will come into play. Now, as we mentioned when we went through the rule book, the Rise of the Red Skull is a campaign, and to that effect, we do have some new cards, the Hydra Campaign basic cards. We don't want to spoil them. Then we also have the Hydra Campaign expert sets that'll be added into the game. So these looks like they're going to do negative things, but they're like, medical emergency, martial law, anti-hero propaganda, things like that. Now, as we're taking a look at the components, we're already a few minutes in here. I don't want to take too much time going through the villain deck. Well, decks, since there's 5, because we have 5 different scenarios. But we'll take a look at what the main villain's abilities are for each of the scenarios. So Crossbones, while he has a weapon attachment, his attack gains piercing. So that's no fun. So he gains piercing, then on level 2. Search the encounter deck and discard pile for his machine gun. So he gets his gun. Then if you do go to expert, reveal the top card of the experimental weapons deck. So you're going to need to do that. Now it's a 3-part scheme. Attack on Mount Athena, the Infinity Stone, and the Getaway. So he's attacking it, trying to steal the stone, and then making it out of there. So there's his machine gun. He's got armor. He's working with Hydra bombers. Full auto, which I'm sure it just means he shoots up the place. Hard as nail for armor. Raid the Armory. His assault side schemes. And then here the experimental weapon deck, laser rifle, energy shield, power gauntlets, and exosuit. Stuff we really don't want him to have. Now the second is the absorbing man. So he gains the trait of each environment in play. So when revealed, if super absorbing power is in play, deal 1 encounter card to each player. Otherwise, search the encounter deck and discard power for super absorbing power and reveal it. Shuffle the encounter deck if it was searched this way. So that'll be interesting to see what traits he gets. Then with number 3 is a forced response. So that's when you're playing expert mode. After absorbing man activates against you, if he has the ice or stone trait, place 1 threat on the main scheme. Metal or wood, take 1 indirect damage. So none shall pass. So this is his only scheme, but as you can see, it's difficult to from the complete. So these are environments like dense forest, snowy hillside, rocky outcrop. So these will give him different abilities. The abandoned facility, ball and chain, stall tactics, swinging his stone, steel kick, piercing thorns, omnimorph duplication, icy grip, avalanche, and then there's super absorbing powers here. So this absorbing man gains ice, metal, stone, and wood traits. Well, you definitely want to defeat that side scheme as soon as possible. So next we've got the Taskmaster. So after a player changes to hero form, they discard the top card of the encounter deck and take damage equal to the number of boost icons on that card. Well, that is just obnoxious. When revealed, deal each player an encounter card. After a player changes to hero form, so he's got both of those abilities, and at level 3, he's just tougher. Still an encounter card. You just do it one more time, and he's got that same force response. His goal is to hunt down heroes. He has captive heroes like Moon Knight, Shang-Chi, White Tiger, and Elektra. He's got his Hydra Hunters. He's got a sword, which gives him piercing, a shield, which gives him retaliate 1, photographic reflexes, which lets him do an interrupt if it's still attached to him. That's annoying. Mimicry, hunted by Hydra. So each player in hero form takes 1 damage and discards 1 card at random from their hand. That's no fun. Captured by Hydra. When revealed, place 1 random set-aside captive ally face down beneath the scheme. When the scheme is defeated, a player defeated, it takes that ally into their hand and removes the scheme from the game. So I guess we can save some allies. Pretty cool. Then his training camp, where he's training his Hydra Hunters and maybe even the captured heroes. So that brings us to our 4th villain, Arnim Zola. So he just has retaliate 1. Then when he's revealed, you gotta put the test subject side scheme into play for level 2. And then if you do play expert, each player searches the encounter deck and discard pile for a minion and reveals it. So the Island of Dr. Zola. So it's a multi-part scheme where you go to the island, try to stop him, I guess. And then we got the Mad Doctor. He's got bioservants, mutates, all sorts of evil experiments. Berserk mutates. And then there's things like defensive programming, pain inhibitors. These are all attachments, so it looks like you can attach these to minions, making them stronger. Mind Ray can confuse you. Place 1 test counter on the main scheme. I'm not sure what that is. I'm sure it all makes sense. Then he's got Hydra Prison, test subjects, more test subjects, and some experiments as his side schemes. So next, we're moving on to the final villain of this expansion, the Red Skull. So he gets +1 attack for each side scheme in play. When revealed, you deal each player an encounter card for level 2. And then it's the same thing for level 3. But +1 attack for each side scheme in play is pretty intense. I'm sure he's going to have multiple schemes. And we'll figure that out on the setup as he is the Red Skull. So Rise of the Red Skull is his main scheme. Then the New World Hydra as he tries to take over the world. So you got minions like the Sleeper, Guard, Retaliate 1 toughness, 5 health per player. That's not going to be easy. Hydra Exo Soldiers, they all have 5 health with toughness. 2 scheme, 2 attack. Eesh. Red Skull's Luger. He gains piercing and range, but you have to spend a lot of resources to get rid of it. Also gives him +1 scheme and 1 attack. Gains Retaliate 1 with his right hook, which is never fun. Master Strategist, when Red Skull activates, give him an additional boost card for each side scheme in play. Yeah, gotta get rid of that. He can use his psychic powers to twist reality. When attached side scheme is defeated, deal the first player an encounter card. Bitter Rival, exhaust a character you control for each side scheme in play. That's not fun because you have to do that to yourself. Spreading Lies, place 2 threat on each scheme and play. Terrible guy. Infinite Power, give Red Skull a tough status card. And he schemes. Then we've got his side schemes: Red House, Sleeper Awakened, Prison Camps, Censor the Past, Hydra Reinforcements, and Mass Chaos. Just really doing all sorts of nasty stuff in the world. Then, of course, we've got these new decks we're going to be adding in with the Hydra Assault teams. So you're seeing like Flame Soldiers, Jet Trooper minions that will be added in. Also Hail Hydra. Weapon Master, so we got knives, sidearms. The villain schemes if they have a weapon attachment, this card gains Surge. Concussion grenades, so just throwing and hitting with weapons, that might be a Crossbones deck. Then we've got Hydra Patrol, Hydra Regulars, Hydra Soldiers, and the Hydra Patrol side scheme. So there you have it. That's all the components for Marvel Champions, the card game, The Rise of the Red Skull. Now keep it right here, as Julie and I are going to come back at you with our review. There's just a few new elements in the game, so we'll talk about some of those keywords and stuff in the review instead of doing really a how to play. So we'll be back in a flash. So The Rise of Red Skull. Let's talk a little bit about some of the new mechanics and the changes to the game, and then we'll go through our review and give our viewers our opinions.
Well, I like the campaign mode. I like campaign games, and this was fun. It was fun to be able to play a game that, well, if you've watched the other reviews, you know that we love, and be able to play it in a continuous campaign mode for at least 4 different villains, I guess.
5 different villains.
Okay, 5. See? I felt like 4. I don't know what happened. One of them was less than memorable, I guess.
Which one would I say that we beat rather easily? I think, at least for us, and I've had some discussions with others about what heroes they used during the game and how it went for them. But Arnim Zola for us, the 4th hero, was kind of a nothing. We just really beat him fairly easily. We were also a little disappointed in Red Skull. That being said, from some conversations I've had, Taskmaster, who was really difficult for us, he almost actually took us out in like the first round. I think I was down to 3 health, and Spider-Woman wasn't faring very well. I played Hawkeye. She played Spider-Woman. We did alternate as well, but primarily Hawkeye because we both wanted to play the character. So I have to agree with you. Campaign mode is awesome. I really loved getting those upgrades. I felt that they were just enough to change the game, but not so much that it would affect a play of the game as just a one-off scenario. So that is one thing that I really like. It'll work well as one-offs and the full campaign setup.
So I love the campaign setup. As for the characters, the new characters, I feel like they're probably some of the most balanced characters that we have so far. They're both strong. So I played primarily with Spider-Woman.
Yeah, and before we talk too much about the characters, you should talk about one of her new abilities, which is a new rule, because I want to talk about some of the other rules too, like the insight and a few other things that they add to the game. But how did you like having a character with multiple aspects for the first time? So that's one of the new rules to the game. Spider-Woman, only her, is the only character that can use 2 aspects, but also her regular cards are aspect cards as well. Well, not all of them, but some of them.
So that was fun. I mean, it's nice having mix. It's a little bit like being able to deck build and build your own deck the way you'd like it to be. So that was fun. And it's nice to be able to, to use some of those powers that way.
It'd be interesting to see what you could actually do if you're deck building her, because you could, mash up a protection deck with her aggression.
So what I was going to say about her that I like about her is that she's very well balanced to be able to thwart as well as fight, which makes her a lot of fun to play because it felt like against every villain, she had something to offer, and she was able to adapt based on what was coming up to say, okay, we need to thwart now, so I can thwart. So that was a lot of fun.
And just talking about Hawkeye with his new mechanics, which are the arrows and his quiver.
That was a lot of fun.
Which is very cool. So Hawkeye is a little bit weaker in terms of thwarting. He does have some strong cards to do it as well. I probably would not necessarily play Hawkeye as a leadership build. That's what you get as a standard deck. But it actually works surprisingly well. And a few times Julie was looking over like, how many allies do you have? How is this happening? So that was a lot of fun. But just talking about like the way the arrows work, his ability to go through the top of his deck, add an arrow, put it in his quiver, and really, well, you can't always do it, but be able to build up just a nice set of cards that you're going to be able to use in a variety of different situations. Added a lot of versatility, and it was a really cool new mechanic. Now, talking about the hero mechanics, what did you think of some of the new villain mechanics?
Well, I just want to talk about Hawkeye and that quiver because when I played him, you had played him, then I played him the second.
I didn't get the quiver the first time.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I pulled the quiver, and you're like, that's cool. And then you got it afterwards. But I thought that, honestly, that's one of the most fun upgrades that I think we've had for the different heroes.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Hawkeye was a lot better than I thought he would be.
So, sorry, what was your question?
And what did you think about some of the new mechanics for the villains, like the insight, the fact that some of their weapons carried over, and also villains having retaliate was fairly new to us. So how did that really, I mean, it came into effect, it didn't. There was also piercing that got rid of tough. How did you like those new elements being added to the game?
Well, I think that we talked about it in previous reviews. The villains had to start getting a little bit stronger because the champions were getting that much stronger. So you had to, with stronger superheroes, you have to have stronger villains. So there's a couple times that I thought, okay, we're in trouble. But, especially we talked about it with Taskmaster, it seemed like at least his skills made it, pretty difficult to play, made him pretty difficult to play against.
Yeah, and what really helped us out against him was Spider-Woman's pheromones. Being able to stun and confuse someone really made it fairly easy at times. I would have to say that just talking about some of the new mechanics, I think it also made some of the old mechanics shine because we had to think a little bit more outside of the box. And this is probably the time that we spent the most alternating between superhero and alter ego form out of all of our plays in the game. And largely that was just because of the abilities of both characters to stun and confuse their opponents. If we weren't doing that, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't have gotten anywhere at all in this campaign. So I think we've talked enough about just sort of the overall feeling of the campaign, some of the new stuff for the characters. What did you think of this Rise of Red Skull as an expansion? Is this a must-have? Did you enjoy this?
I definitely think it is. I mean, as much as I enjoyed the campaign, it took us a little while to play through the entire campaign. I look forward to just, pulling out one of the villains and playing it, as a one-of as well. I definitely think if you enjoy Marvel Champions and you have the rest of the collection, I definitely think this is someone that you'd want to add to the collection. I don't know that you can play. Can you have this game as a standalone?
No, there is. That's actually one thing that I found a little disappointing, and thank you for bringing it up. I would have liked to have gotten this in a bigger box. Now, there is room to add more cards, which is great, but you've got a cheap insert in here, unlike the nice plastic one that you get in the original Champions game, and I would have loved to have another box to go alongside it for storage purposes. Fantasy Flight Games has never done it. Everyone wants one. Please figure out some awesome, cool storage solutions for your LCGs. Everyone would buy them. Well, maybe not everyone, but there's a lot of us that would buy them. I know Julie would be behind me buying one.
He does the organization of the cards. He just says he bought them and then he moves on.
No, I mean something to store it all that looks cool, like a nice case, like looking like Tony Stark. His briefcase.
I get that, but it just ends up in spot here somewhere.
Yeah, but if I could fit lots of cards, it'd be really cool. So that's the one thing that is like sort of my disappointment with it. Insert, not enough space. Hopefully we'll get something along those lines in the future.
I really don't have any disappointments for this game. I really enjoyed it. It was lots of fun. I enjoyed both of the superheroes. I would play either of them again. And I thought the villains were a nice upgrade from the other villains that we've played. I think it'll be fun to play against them again.
No, and I have to agree with you, but I do have one question, and I'm going to go a little bit the other direction with the villains. I do think we finally got some forward momentum on the villains compared to a lot of the stronger hero packs that have come out. I feel that most of the villains in this game will fare well against Miss Marvel, Captain America.
Thor. At one point we said, wouldn't it be nice to have Thor right now?
I think Thor...
Is it against Red Skull that all the minions kept coming out?
No, that was Arnim Zola. That's the one thing I was going to say. Thor, not so sure about Hulk, but I do feel like Thor and Doctor Strange might still be ahead of the power curve. Doctor Strange for sure is way ahead of the power curve. I got the feeling just playing this that if we had a third player that was Doctor Strange, capitalizing on Spider-Woman's abilities to stun and confuse, if you had Doctor Strange doing massive threat reduction or massive damage depending on what spells he was casting, it could have skewed things the other way. Also, I do think Cap may have, but not really. There's definitely probably some very strong Cap builds that you can do, but Thor, in terms of having him as a third character in this, would have definitely made it a little too easy. Despite having the extra amount of health, there just would have been way too many ways to just wreck shop and draw tons of cards, because this is a very minion heavy, well, besides the Absorbing Man, I'd say most of them are fairly minion heavy, because of course you've got Hydra Soldiers, which plays exactly into the way that Thor works. So getting better, but still I still think there's some very strong heroes that still slightly outpace the villains. We have to try Red Skull again. I think it might just be time for us to move on to expert mode
I was gonna say,
of the game, because we've played this game a ton and we've played it with a lot of different characters, and we've kind of got our strategy down. And
maybe after we've had a chance, we've got a nice backlog of games to play, but once we have a chance to pull this back out and play it maybe in expert mode, we can do a revisit and let you guys know what we thought once we've played it in expert mode.
We will be starting doing some look backs on the channel. We just actually got one done, but it's not Marvel Champions, but that's a great idea, and we'll definitely add it to the schedule. I think we've covered everything that we wanted to say about the Rise of Red Skull. You've got some very diverse heroes, new mechanics, very balanced. The campaign works perfectly with the two heroes that are in the box. I think you can pretty much throw in almost any hero and it will still be balanced. Still not sure about Doctor Strange and Thor. Possibly Hulk, but with his lack of ability to thwart, I'm not too worried. I will say though, these guys only have 12 health. So you could definitely kill someone with Hulk in one turn. That's totally a possibility.
Not included in this pack though, just so that you don't confuse people out there.
Yeah.
This expansion only has, from a champion perspective, Spider-Woman and Hawkeye.
Yes. So let's move on to final scoring. What is your score for the Rise of Red Skull?
As an expansion, I think this is an 8.
I have to agree with you. This is actually, I'm going to go up a little higher. I'm going to give it an 8.5 because it's adding new mechanics to the game. It is bringing the campaign system in. We've got some great heroes who, honestly, when I heard it was Hawkeye and Spider-Woman, I know the characters, and I do enjoy Hawkeye in the MCU, but I've never been a big Hawkeye fan in the comics, and I was sort of expecting him to feel a little underpowered, and they really got a great feel to him, and I enjoyed playing him a lot more than I expected. So 8.5 in my book.
So on that note, it's time to remind you to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified when we have some new content for you.
And down below in the video description, you'll find links to all of our social media feeds: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have pictures of our entire campaign playthrough that will be showing up on those feeds. So if you enjoy taking a look at board game pictures, be sure to follow us there. And then popping up in front of us are going to be links to some of our previously released videos. In front of me, you're going to have the link that will take you back to our most recent video, so the one before this, and well, won't always be the one before this. It'll change up as time moves on. And then the one in front of Julie will be our link to our review on how to play of Marvel Champions, the card game. So what do we need to do now?
Need to grab our drinks.
Grab our fellow Avenger, or maybe Hydra agent, double agent. Spider-Woman's a double agent.
We're gonna keep playing games.
We keep playing games. Definitely going to keep playing Champions.
So what's the next expansion on this? Has it been announced? Oh, yes, you told me!
We have Kang the Conqueror, so that's the next villain pack. And then we've got Ant-Man, and I'm drawing a blank.
Guardians?
That's the next big box expansion.
I can't wait.
And we've got Ant-Man and another hero pack coming that just slipped my mind right now.
Ant-Man will be fun, too.
The card actually folds. So you can become Ant-Man or Giant Man. We like to sleeve our cards. I'm gonna have to do some scanning or something just so we can protect the card. But I think it's overall a cool concept. Well, keep it right here then if that review is out, and maybe you'll jump in and take a look at that. But make sure to subscribe if you like Marvel Champions content.